Walt.
Eh? What?
I'm saying hello to everyone.
Oh. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Walt. Mwah. There you go. Sorry, I forgot. There it is. That's what I was looking for. I don't think that goes. Oh, it does go there. Actually, no, I don't. That don't go there. Or does it? Maybe it does. How's my bestie NC doing?
Oh, yeah. Morning. Hi, Lindsay. Hi, Walt. Hi there. Oh, yeah, this needs a slight repair. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Shouldn't be too much of a problem. Unless a bit dirty. How am I going to fix that? Oh. Just on my way to work. Oh. I've been pimping Anne's trolley.
It's spruced up.
Give it a full spray job.
Yeah. And got the new wheels today.
Put a new set of wheels on it. Ready to go cruising now.
Hell yeah. But no, I'm going to be careful.
Cruising or dogging. Okay, kitty. So what do you want for dinner?
Not an effing clue.
I made too much last night. That was a stupid idea. Filling a fucking cheese garlic bread with chicken strips. I thought my fucking stomach was going to explode.
And me with a freaking.
I know, I forgot. I give you two. I made 2 full portions of spaghetti bolognese.
And I couldn't put it in the fridge to reheat today. And I'm like, Oh, I'm like, oh, fuck it.
Yeah.
I gave it a good go though. But then it got too much. I was like, nah, I can't eat it anymore.
Too much. Right. I think I've got one of the projects or not. These are just general fixes, these are.
I'm making some yesterday.
Oh, hey baby, thank you. Oh, that was nice.
What was that?
Come on to me.
Mm.
Oh, thank you. There.
Love, 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 love. Time to go rummaging.
Hey, kitty. What's that for? What were you looking at me and then she started missing that?
Mm-hmm. See, it's false love. She does get lovey-dovey sometimes. Mm. Go on then. Up. I don't want to see your bum. There you go. So the box is in the way. hate the word. What's the matter, Papa? Let's go rummaging for parts. I'm not sure I can do anything else on this part. I need to listen to. Season 5, episode 14.
Dealer from Dallas who dabbled in restoring classic cars. As the Odessa police began to look into the death of Neil Jennings, a macabre scenario began to unfold, and they found themselves faced with one of the most bizarre homicide cases they'd ever investigated. The key was a man named Bill Roberts, an enigmatic drifter who worked for Neil Jennings and was apparently the last person to see him alive.
Help me restore it. Did a pretty good job. Now listen, you're going to help me.
8 weeks earlier, Neil had hired Bill to do the finish details on his latest project, a 1959 Ford Thunderbird.
Tell me about this new guy you hired. Well, he's okay, but I only pay him $50 a week plus room and board.
You're kidding. Well, that keeps him off the street.
In private, Neil let on that he was having financial problems. In fact, he could not even pay Bill the $50 weekly salary he had promised.
Bill, glad to have met you. Yeah. Bye now.
That would be the last time anyone ever saw Neil Jennings. Not so Bill Roberts. Over the next 48 hours, he was all over Odessa, engaged in a number of suspicious.
Where's Neil? We just got back in town and dropped him off at his lady friend's house. Guess they're having some dinner or something.
Well, here you go.
Thank you.
Well, you sure look like you're out of breath.
I had to walk in this little bar down the street. Betty went in the truck. I was wondering if you'd give me a jump.
Well, sure I can.
Jack agreed to jump-start the pickup. Bill parked the truck in Jack's backyard and went to sleep in the cab. The next morning, Jack noticed that the truck bed was covered with a tarp. He also noticed that Bill was circling the vehicle in a strange manner. His eyes... Bill stopped at a rundown motel where he attempted to sell Neil's truck for $1,200.
Oh, that's a nice truck, Bill. $1,200.
When he found no buyer, Bill asked the residents if he could park the truck in the back of the motel, hidden from view.
I got no problem with that.
All right, well, I appreciate that.
All right.
About 6 hours later, at 5 p.m., Bill Roberts
Sorry about that, Bill. I don't think we have a pick or a shovel around here. Wish I could help you, though.
It's okay. Look, I'll just see y'all a little later then.
Bill then drove the truck to a convenience store, less than a mile away.
I was sitting on the store behind the counter, and Bill came in and asked me if he could park the truck behind because the truck was overheating.
Thank you. I'm just gonna...
I said, go ahead.
No problem. Would that be all?
Later, Bill was seen back at the motel, where he again spent the night in Neil's truck.
Saturday night, he came back and he said he'd done the job. He acted real nervous. And he acted especially nervous whenever he went over there to get something out of the truck that had the tarp on it.
The next morning, another odd encounter.
Would it be okay if I did some laundry?
And I noticed that blood was on his shirt. Well, I didn't think anything about it because, you know, it just looked like maybe he cut himself and wiped it off on his shirt.
Follow me and I'll show you how to use this washer.
So I told him, okay, you know, yeah, you can use the laundry.
A few minutes later, another resident noticed a small amount of blood on the back bumper of Neil's pickup. Around noon, Bill left the motel and never returned. 8 hours later, the police were on the scene of the trash fire.
Our investigation at the scene showed there was 2 pools of blood. We found shotgun shell casings and wadding there at the scene. There was drag marks leading from the parking lot over to the concrete slab where Neil was actually found on fire. There's no doubt in our mind that the fatal shots happened in that parking lot.
Sheriff's deputies now believe that Bill Roberts shot Neil Jennings on Saturday night and hid his body in a trash heap. For some unknown reason, he waited 24 hours and then returned to set Neil's body on fire. Roberts' apparent motive? To murder Neil Jennings so that he could steal his truck and sell it.
The thing that makes this case so strange to us is we know Neil got here Friday night. He was with Bill. Neil was never seen again after Friday night. Now, Saturday morning we've got Bill by himself in the truck. Saturday evening we've got Saul hearing the gunshots. And Sunday evening is when the body was actually found due to the fire. The question is, where was Neil from Friday night until Sunday? You know, when did the murder actually take place?
In the course of their investigation, police learned that Bill Roberts was actually Bill Blackwell, who had served time for larceny and theft. He was wanted by the Texas Department of Corrections on a parole violation. Authorities determined that Bill Blackwell left Odessa within 24 hours of setting the fire. He then drove to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where he sold Neil's truck in a flea market. He has not been seen since. Next, the strange odyssey of a little girl kidnapped in 1986. Gallup, New Mexico, 140 miles west of Albuquerque, lies within what was for centuries the territory of the Navajo Indian Nation. On April 6, 1986, this quiet community of 18,000 was rocked by the mysterious disappearance of a 9-year-old Navajo girl, Antoinette Calladito. When her mother and 2 sisters awoke that morning, they were surprised to discover that Antoinette was not in the house.
We went looking for her around the house, nothing. I didn't start panicking until we checked with all the neighbors, went to every house, and nobody had no sight seen of her. And that's when I panicked.
Penny Calladito's neighbors fanned out through the surrounding foothills looking for Antoinette. For 3 days, they searched along with the police, but no one found a trace of the little girl. Authorities were almost certain she had been kidnapped. The days stretched into weeks, then months. Police could offer little to bolster Penny's hopes of ever finding her daughter alive. Finally, after a year had passed and all seemed lost, a dramatic call for help came into the Gallup police station. Before the girl could answer, the call was abruptly ended by an unidentified man.
Hello? Antoinette, where are you? Antoinette? Hello?
Detectives played a recording of the call for Penny Calladito. If the voice was indeed her daughter's, it would be an agonizing glimmer of hope.
I listened to that tape over and over and over. And just by the way she says her last name and the way she screamed sent chills all over my body. Because a mother knows, and I know that was her.
She knew that was her daughter's voice on that tape, and she just couldn't figure out who the male's voice was in the background and where Antoinette was at. We know Antoinette had indicated that she was in Albuquerque, but the call was so short that it couldn't even be traced as to what line it was coming from.
The phone call nourished renewed hopes for Antoinette's safe return. However, 4 torturous years passed without any further clues. Once again, authorities began to fear that she would never be found alive. In desperation, the FBI finally released 2 computer-enhanced photographs showing what Antoinette might look like at the age of 14. 4 months later, the last-ditch effort paid off. A possible sighting of Antoinette was reported in Carson City, Nevada, 870 miles from Gallup.
A waitress at a restaurant in Carson City told the Carson City police about a strange incident that she had witnessed that particular day.
Okay, 3 cheeseburgers.
She waited on a table at which sat a male and a female, rather unkempt, and a small girl about the age of 14 or 15. The little girl would deliberately drop a utensil on the floor. The waitress put the utensil back on the table, and the little girl grabbed her hand and squeezed it hard. And the waitress thought nothing of it and went about her business. The threesome left the restaurant, and the waitress went back to the table and began to bust the table. She lifted up the plate belonging to the girl, and underneath was a napkin that said, "Please help me, call the police." By the time she realized what had happened, the couple and the girl were gone.
1 month after the Carson City sighting, detectives re-interviewed Antoinette's younger sister, Wendy, who was 5 years old when Antoinette disappeared. Now 10, Wendy made a stunning revelation.
We went to Wendy's school with the intention of just talking to her about what her recollections were of that particular night.
There was a knock at the door, and then Anthony went to go answer, and then I followed her.
Who's there? Open up. Who's there?
Uncle Joe, open up. She goes, "Who is it?" And then they say, "Uncle Joe." So she opened the door and they grabbed her. She started kicking and she goes, "Let me go, let me go." And then they took her to a van, a brown van.
Did you see what these guys look like?
No, I didn't see the faces.
Wendy, why didn't you tell anybody about what you saw that night?
Because I thought, since my mom was crying and everything, I thought I'd get in trouble.
I strongly believe that she was fearful, in that people would think that for a 5-year-old, she's just making stories up. You know, I don't believe she's making this up. I strongly feel that she's telling us the truth with that.
Uncle Joe, at that time in 1986, was Penny's brother-in-law. He was married to Penny's sister. We recently interviewed him, and he provided an alibi and a witness corroborating his alibi, and he is not a suspect.
I believe that the people that took Antoinette are not family members, but is somebody that is close to the family. Otherwise, Antoinette would not have opened that door had they not stated that it was her Uncle Joe. I strongly believe that somebody had to have known who Uncle Joe was and had to have known what to say to get Antoinette to open up that door.
Finally, Penny Calladito turned to her own Native American heritage in the search for Antoinette. She and her other daughters visited a respected Navajo medicine woman skilled in performing traditional tribal ceremonies. Unsolved Mysteries was allowed to film portions of the crystal ritual, or as it is called in Navajo, Des Chi. It is a centuries-old rite with a specific purpose of contacting the spirit of a missing person. According to the medicine woman, Antoinette is still alive and may have a child. She is being held against her will by threats of violence far from any city, somewhere in the Southwest. Detectives were amazed that additional information provided by the medicine woman was consistent with elements of their own investigation.
Going to the medicine lady gives me a lot of strength, and it helps me to just know that she is alive. I want her to be safe wherever she is, no matter who she's with. They got to have some compassion, not to hurt another human being, as small as she is. And I pray that God will help guide her and help guide all of us to keep the strength to go on, to find her and bring her home safe.
When we return, a series of anonymous gifts shows a Florida couple that no good deed goes unrewarded. Around Christmas time, even the most hard-boiled among us seems to soften up, to look for the best in others, to give more freely of ourselves. It's a time when we begin to hope for little miracles.
Found that bit. That was
This is the story of a simple
doing
good deed, which in a charming and mysterious way returned itself 500-fold.
I was just
The setting is
picking
not
up
the snow
parts
and
that
ice and
would
fir
fit
trees of the north, but rather the palm trees,
what I mean.
palmy breezes, and blue waters.
No, not random in the middle.
Behind its ritzy facade, Florida harbors a very different subculture of retired couples living on meager fixed incomes. Jean and Russell Johnson are just such a couple. Russell, a former fire chief in Wayne, Michigan, was forced to retire after a severe heart attack. Now Russell spends most days in his workshop, building custom dollhouses and repairing church organs. Jean is a homemaker who raised 4 children before she and Russell moved to Florida. Despite some continuing health problems, the Johnsons were managing to make ends meet, and their lives were routine and uneventful until the winter of 1985.
Well, this day started out about the same as any other day down here. It was in November, and it was unusually warm, as I remember it, and humid. I was working out in the shop. It was about 10:30 in the morning. All of a sudden, the door of the house came open, and Jean came out in, frightened, scared.
There's a man outside. He said he wanted some work for something to eat.
Something from?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any work that I could do to get something to eat? I'm really hungry.
No, I don't have any work for you to do. But you sure won't leave here hungry. Should we get anything to make sandwich out of?
I can make a sandwich. Well, usually we don't have much for lunch, you know. But we just happened to go in to town, got some lunch meat, and so I had lots of stuff to feed them.
How about a glass of iced tea, cold?
That would taste real good.
Jean, would you bring a glass of iced tea? Make it 2 glasses. I'll have one with them. You look tired. Would you like a chair, sit down?
Yes.
The stranger had asked for help from a couple who had very little themselves. Russell had recently undergone open heart surgery, and Gina successfully battled cancer. Their financial resources were depleted. Nevertheless, they were willing to share what they had.
Tired?
Yeah, well, I've come a long way, you know.
Where are you from?
I'm from Houston, and there are no jobs out there, and
Just talking with him,
came hitchhiking here.
you could tell the man was not a bum.
Had no luck being picked up at all.
He was very articulate in his speech, friendly, and basically a gentleman.
Thank you.
He may have been down on his luck, but he was no bum. He ate quite a while. I think probably he had about 3 sandwiches to begin with. And then he rested a bit and had some more tea. He was just really too tired to talk. So we just sat there and kept him company. After a period of time, I don't know, I would say 5 minutes or so, he said, well, he says, I guess I better be on my way.
Thank you.
Lots of luck on your job. Just a minute. Do you have any money?
13 cents.
I reached in my pocket and I had some change. And Jean turned at that time, went back in the house, hit the hypothetical sugar bowl, and she came up with some change and another dollar bill, and I imagine the man who probably gave him about $5. And as we gave it to him, we noticed his eyes. There was just such a sparkle of life came back into them. And he just reacted so differently. He didn't seem to be the man that he was when we first talked with him.
Thank you.
And that was only a matter of everything within a half an hour.
God bless you.
Well, as he said that, the strangest feeling came over Jean and I. Just feeling of such goodness in love. Go through the back to the pool.
Jean and Russell Johnson walked through their house, into the garage, then out onto a side porch. They wanted to wave to their visitor one last time.
Where is he?
He was nowhere to be seen.
Are we losing it? We walked back through the garage. Nobody. We walked out to the street, looked both ways, walked out to the main street in front of our house. Nobody.
The mysterious stranger had vanished as quickly as he appeared, yet the special warmth Jean and Russell Johnson felt lingered.
Oh, this is a nice one.
They began to remark, half in jest, that perhaps they had been visited by an angel. Then, about 10 days before Christmas, the Johnsons received an anonymous card.
Like somebody's playing a trick.
Good. Huh? Christian friend.
The check for $500. I don't believe this.
$500? Well, we don't know any friends that have that kind of money to give away, especially anonymously, of your Christian friends. And I looked at Jean. She was crying. What's the matter?
Can't believe it.
It hit at a very opportune time because we didn't have anything. Well, sure, at the right time. And the only remark that I could make at the time was, has to be our angel.
Good morning, Russ. Jean, how are you today?
Oh, good, Ernie.
Good. How can I help you?
Well, we've got a bit of a problem, perhaps. We got this in the mail, and we think it might be a practical joke, and if we didn't know you, I don't think we even try to cash it. Is it any good?
Take a look at it. Good as gold, Russ. How would you like it?
Something. Put the checking account, Ernie.
I'll do it right now.
We couldn't believe it. We tried to check to see if there's somebody that we knew that could have sent it. We looked at the postmarks, where it was from. We checked handwritings. We'd say to everybody, if you sent this, thank you. But nobody. Nobody did.
The following Christmas, another anonymous card arrived. It was signed, Your Friend. It contained another $500 check. The next 3 Christmases brought 3 more checks and 3 more cards, all mailed from the Orlando area. Jean and Russell Johnson have never been able to find out who their benefactor is, but they have a pretty good idea.
We've often thought back. We took $5 that we didn't have and gave to somebody that needed it more. We don't know if there's any connection. But in return, from somewhere, we've gotten $500 for 5 years.
God bless you.
Could it be from our angel? We don't know. We have no identification, but we would like to say thank you to somebody. It was a gift well received.
Did the Johnsons experience a Christmas miracle? Perhaps. Or perhaps they simply experienced the everyday miracle of kindness, which is never out of season. From all of us at Unsolved Mysteries, I'd like to extend to you and your family our best wishes for a safe, happy holiday. Join me next time. Perhaps you may be able to help solve a mystery.
This program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you're about to see is not a news broadcast.
(1971), the Philippines. Roger Rojas, an amateur treasure hunter, found an intricate system of tunnels dug by the Japanese during World War II. Rojas claims that deep inside he discovered an amazing hidden treasure, a solid gold Buddha and countless boxes of gold bars. But Rojas's joy was short-lived. He soon found himself imprisoned and tortured at the orders of Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos. And as for the treasure, possibly worth billions, its whereabouts remain an unsolved mystery. Caitlin Arquette was a popular, vivacious honor student who dreamed of becoming a doctor. But in 1989, Caitlin was brutally and senselessly gunned down, leaving her family haunted by unanswered questions. Who killed Caitlin and why? 20 years ago, a large caring family in California took in a 4-year-old girl whose father needed help to care for her. Now that family asks for your help to find the young child that they loved and accepted as their own. Join me for these fascinating stories. Perhaps someone somewhere has that one vital clue that can help solve a mystery. Perhaps that someone is watching. Perhaps it's you. From 1965 to 1986, Ferdinand Marcos ruled the Philippines, first as an elected leader, then as a virtual dictator. By the time Marcos was deposed, His personal wealth was estimated at $10 billion, much of it allegedly looted from his own people. Few dared challenge Marcos publicly, but on May 5, 1971, newspapers in the Philippines carried a startling front-page story. A Filipino locksmith and part-time treasure hunter named Roger Rojas was accusing Marcos's henchmen of ransacking his house and stealing a rare solid gold Buddha, which Rojas had found while excavating near his home. Just days earlier, Roger's brother had taken this photograph of Roger and the Buddha. Roger was 27 years old at the time and in the prime of life. Roger Rojas is now 49, but his health is ruined, wrecked by torture and years of living on the run. Roger's nemesis, Ferdinand Marcos, died in Hawaii in 1989, a fabulously wealthy man. Today, his estate is a target of a number of lawsuits, including one filed by the humble but unbowed locksmith, Roger Rojas, who dared to cross one of the most powerful men in Asia. In 1970, Roger Rojas and his family lived 200 miles north of Manila on the Philippine island of Luzon. Roger worked in nearby Baguio City. On weekends, he was part of a large group of Filipinos whose avocation was treasure hunting. One of Roger's fellow treasure hunters was Albert Fuchigami, whose mother was Filipino, but whose father had been an officer in the Japanese army during World War II. Fuchigami had painstakingly recreated from memory a map which his father had showed him as a youngster. The map pinpointed the location of a secret tunnel system where a fortune in gold bars had allegedly been left behind when the Japanese were driven from the Philippines.
We were friends for a long time before he told me that he knew of a hidden treasure. He revealed to me what he knew about the tunnels. I had very high hopes because Fuchigami was the son of a Japanese soldier.
Roger Rojas and Albert Fuchigami hired a crew to excavate. In the first few minutes of digging, they found a layer of Japanese shrapnel. A few weeks later, the crew broke through into the tunnels, which the Japanese had apparently dynamited shut. The tunnel system was elaborate, complete with railroad tracks. For the next few weeks, Rojas and Fuchigami explored the labyrinth. They found that one explosion had blocked all access to the main underground passageway. Undaunted, they dug a narrow tunnel around the rocks.
I was the first one who went in because I was concerned for my companions. If there was a booby trap, then they would die. Because I was the leader, I was the one who went in first. To my surprise, I found several Japanese skeletons. There must have been more than 10.
Roger had stumbled upon a forgotten tomb. Japanese soldiers had apparently been trapped underground when their own retreating army set off explosions to hide the tunnels.
Nandito na tayo.
The explorers were stunned. In a hidden cavity, a Buddha, which appeared to be made of gold, stood solemn guard. Roger knew that the Buddha was not native to the Philippines. He assumed that it had been plundered from one of the Southeast Asian countries conquered by the Japanese during World War II. While their crew attempted to move the 2,000-pound Buddha, Rojas and Fuchigami ventured farther inside the tunnel.
ko na nga ba tama itong mapa? Nandito na tayo.
Just as a map had predicted, there were boxes upon boxes of solid gold bars. Rojas and Fuchigami hit on a plan. They would dynamite the tunnel closed to safeguard their find, then sell the Buddha to buy trucks and equipment to transport the gold.
Bigat ginto talaga.
Roger Rojas took the Buddha home. A potential buyer confirmed that the Buddha was solid gold. He offered Roger 1 million pesos, $160,000 as a down payment.
Salamat, Mr. Orihara. Gracias, Mr. Rojas.
After the buyer left, Roger and his brother decided to take a closer look at the Buddha. Roger had noticed that the buyer paid special attention to the Buddha's neck.
My brother and I had a suspicion that there was a joint, an opening inside the Buddha. So what we did was, we got a piece of wood and we hit the Buddha several times with this piece of wood.
Roger says there were several handfuls of diamonds inside the Buddha. Some were rough cut, some fine. Roger hid the diamonds in a closet. That night, Roger's brother took these pictures of Roger with the Buddha. Roger thought the photographs would protect him, but news of his discovery had already spread fast and far, all the way to the president's palace in Manila. Although the Philippines was still nominally a democracy, Ferdinand Marcos, along with his wife Imelda, ruled with virtual autonomy. When Roger found the Buddha in 1971, Marcos was in his prime, and his primary tactic was brute force. Two months after Roger brought the Buddha home, soldiers swarmed his house. The red ribbons on their rifles indicated that they were members of President Marcos's elite palace guard, in effect, his personal army. Out of nowhere, the buyer appeared.
Mr. Rojas.
Roger had been double-crossed. With the buyer was another civilian who seemed to be in charge. He ordered the soldiers to ransack the house.
They took everything, even the piggy banks of my children, even the picture album. Whatever my wife inherited, all her jewelry, all the diamonds in the closet, they took all of it. What would have happened if we had fought back? They would just have killed us.
The next day, Roger and his brothers reported the incident to the local police. Then he went to visit Judge Pio Marcos, a family friend for whom Roger had once worked as a chef.
I told him, Judge, why did you let them confiscate my treasure? We're friends. He said, Roger, there is nothing that I can do. I said, why? He said, because the prince asked for it. I said, who's the prince? And he said, the prince, President Marcos.
Pero Judge, kinuha lahat ang mga gamit Roger, mali ang ginawa mo na tinawagan mo ang pulis sapagkat ngayon, malalaman ng mga tao na ang Pangulo ay kasabwat sa kasong ito. Malaking pagkakamali. Dali mo ang pamilya mo at umalis na kayo rito sa Baguio. Delikado ka. Pinirma na ang death warrant mo at hahabulin ka na ng CIS. Wala na akong magagawa para sa iyo. Bahala ka na, Roger.
In June of 1971, on the Philippine island of Luzon, members of President Ferdinand Marcos's elite palace guard seized a golden Buddha from the home of Roger Rojas. The next day, a judge warned Roger that there was a price on his head. Roger and his family fled to an isolated jungle village. While Roger remained secluded, Filipino reporters had already gotten hold of the story. Marcos did allow the press to view the Buddha, but his political opponents felt that Marcos had substituted a fake. One opposition cabinet member, hoping to embarrass the president, convinced Roger to come to Manila to identify the Buddha.
Ako ang representan ng kaling hukuman na ito. Kailangan gawin mo ang gusto kong gawin. Buksan mo to. Gawin mo.
Ginoong Rojas, ang Budang ito ba'y kapareho sa natuklasan mo?
Hindi. Hindi yan ang aking Buddha. Ibang kulay. Yung Buddha ko, natatanggal ang ulo. Ito, hindi natatanggal.
Pinipilit mo ba rin ba na ang Pangulo ang siyang nagnakaw ng natuklasan mong kayamanan?
Yun ang palagay ko. Kasi yung mga soldiers pumasok sa bahay ko, kinuha ang Buddha ko. At kinuha pa din ang alahas ng asawa ko.
Kapanig ka ba ng posisyon?
Hindi naman ako mahilig sa politika eh.
Salamat, Roger. Maraming salamat po sa inyo lahat. Maraming salamat po. Roger, magaling yung ginawa mo. Magaling paglingkod sa bayan ginawa mo.
Hindi talagang Buddha ko yun.
Alam ko.
Marcos and his minions were outraged. Once again, Roger fled Manila. But 2 weeks later, he says he was tracked down by the palace guard.
Three men approached me and pointed their guns at me. They knew me. They told me, Roger, come with us in the car. We will bring you to Manila. I could not escape. I knew they were soldiers. They had guns.
Ang saya-saya nila, nagiinuman sila.
They were so happy. They were drinking whiskey, saying, "So, finally we got him. The famed Roger Rojas."
Tumawag sila sa Malacanang.
They called the palace and they were speaking English. I knew that it was Marcos that they were talking to because they addressed him as Mr. President. Marcos must have asked them, "Are you sure it is Roger Rojas that you captured?"
Yes, sir.
And they said, "Yes, we're sure."
Thank you, Mr. President. The boss is really happy to hear we have you in our custody.
The soldiers demanded that Roger sign a confession authenticating the Buddha and saying that he had been paid off by the opposition party.
Hindi ko pwede pirmahan yan.
Roger says that when he refused, the palace thugs brought in a crude electroshock machine fashioned from automobile batteries.
Hindi ka magtatagal. Magtiwala ka sa akin. Gusto kong malaman kung saan mo nakita ang ginto.
Tapos may pinakita sila.
Then they showed me a picture and they said, "Roger, do you know who this is in the picture?" And I said, "Yes, that's my wife and my kids."
Kung mahal mo ang pamilya mo,
They said, "Roger, if you love your family, cooperate with us. Show us where you found the golden Buddha."
Roger says he endured hours of torture, which permanently damaged the nerves around his left eye.
alam mo, may pangako ko kay Mr. Fuchigami.
I made a promise to Mr. Fujigami. His name is Albert. I told him, "Albert, even if they try to kill me, I will not tell them where the tunnel is."
Kaya, ginamitan ako.
So they had to persecute me.
Hanggang nasa sarili.
And while I was conscious, I really tried not to tell them where the location of the tunnel was. That was my promise to Mr. Fujigami.
Roger says he was held captive at a hotel in Manila and tortured almost daily for several weeks. Finally, he agreed to sign a document stating that he had been paid off by the opposition party.
Magaling. Ano naman ang gagawin mo, Rojas?
Sama ko sa courthouse.
Roger's captors allowed the worst of his wounds to heal. Then they took him to a courtroom in Baguio City and ordered him to point at Marcos's Buddha. He was photographed several times, giving this tacit sign of approval.
Magaling. Ibalik mo si Mr. Rojas sa kotse. Oo. Paano mo, Mr. Rojas? i-publish mo yan bukas. Unang pahina, tama?
Pumunta muna kami sa...
I went to my wife first and my kids. My wife was crying. She was surprised. She said, "What is happening to you? You know they might kill you." And I said, "Just pray."
So alam ko, maiwan ako doon sa pamilya ko.
I stayed with my family for about 10 minutes, and then the soldiers took me again.
Roger was summarily re-imprisoned in the same hotel where he had been tortured.
Alam ko papatayin.
I knew they were going to kill me.
Alam mo, locksmith.
But you know, I'm a locksmith. I know how to open locks.
Meron bintanang maliit.
So I went to the restroom. There was a small window with a small lock.
Roger Rojas went into hiding and never again saw the Golden Buddha. The strain of living underground tore his family apart and eventually led to a divorce. Roger, who has remarried, continues to make his home at an undisclosed location in the Philippines. When Ferdinand Marcos died in 1989, his personal assets exceeded the entire Philippine national treasury. Roger Rojas is convinced that the source of that wealth was the countless boxes of gold bars. As for the Buddha, no one knows exactly where it is. In 1975, at least 2 witnesses claimed to have seen it at one of Marcos's summer palaces. Rumor has it that the Buddha is still somewhere in the Philippines, hidden by a member of the Marcos family.
Oo, siyempre.
Of course, it's very painful. I worked very hard for it. I spent so much time, about 7 months, that we really labored hard. And then in 1 hour, they take it all away.
Napakasalitan.
It's very, very painful.
Kaya ang ginawa ko,
Through a corporation Roger Rojas formed with a friend in the United States, a suit has been filed against the Marcos estate. The case is currently on the docket in Honolulu. Roger has established a foundation to assure that a large portion of any settlement money he may receive will go to provide education, medical aid, food, and job training in the Philippines. Next, a young woman is gunned down in her car. Was she the victim of a random shooting or the target of a hired assassin? On June 14th, 1989, 18-year-old Caitlin Arquette graduated from Highland High School in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Kate was an outgoing, popular honor student who'd been accepted at the University of New Mexico. She planned one day to attend medical school. Shortly before graduation, Kate moved into an apartment with her boyfriend, using money she had received from an insurance settlement.
Let me take you out to dinner.
As far as we could tell, Kate and her boyfriend did get along very well.
I can call a couple friends over.
Well, I was just kind of hoping it could be just the 2 of us.
He was 8 years older than she, but we didn't know it because they lied to us. She knew we wouldn't let her date someone that much older. We thought he was only 4 years older. He seemed like a nice guy. He was around the house a lot. We liked him.
6 weeks later, on the afternoon of Sunday, July 16th, Kate admitted to her mother that she and her boyfriend had been having serious problems almost from the moment they moved in together.
Mother, all you have to do is tell him you don't know where I am and you don't know when I'll be back.
It's a lie. It's not fair. He's gonna be worried about you.
Mother, please. You don't understand.
She told us she'd had a big fight with her boyfriend. She was breaking up with him, and she was going to a girlfriend's house for dinner.
I'll see you later.
And she would either spend the night there or come back and spend it at our house. She was not going to go back to the apartment.
Kate visited her girlfriend from 9:30 to 10:45 p.m. She then headed east along Lomas Road toward her mother's house.
A little bit before midnight, the phone rang. It was a phone call from the emergency room of the hospital. They said Kate is there, that she's been injured. And I said, what's happened? And they said they wouldn't tell me. They said, we can't tell you on the phone. So my husband and I drove to the hospital, and Kate had been shot twice in the head. She was in a coma.
5 hours later, the police arrived at Kate's apartment. Her boyfriend was home alone, seemingly unaware that his girlfriend had been shot and was near death.
We're with the Albuquerque Police Department. Just like come in, talk to you a minute.
Sure. What's this about?
I just want to ask you a couple of questions. Look around, you mind?
No. Just tell me what's going on.
Just like to know where you were tonight.
I was out with the...
Caitlin's boyfriend told me that he had been out with a couple of friends. They had eaten, they'd played pool, and they had a couple of drinks.
So, just tell me what's going on.
While I was there, myself and the other detectives, we discovered a note on top of the kitchen table, and the note read something to the effect, "Hun, I'll be home at a certain time," that sort of thing. It was my belief that he indicated to me that the note came from Caitlin. It must have come from Caitlin because he was not home, and when he got home, he found the note there.
Yes, you did.
I think you should sit down.
Caitlin's boyfriend stated that he and Caitlin did argue, and they did have their disagreements, but he was not aware of her at any time wanting him to leave the apartment or move out or anything that severe.
When the police left the apartment, Kate's boyfriend went straight to the hospital and joined her family in a bedside vigil. Less than 24 hours later, Caitlin Arquette was dead. Her boyfriend had remained by her side until the very end. 6 months after Caitlin Arquette's murder, the Albuquerque Police Department announced that she'd been the victim of a, quote, random act of violence. Caitlin's mother, Lois Duncan, refuses to accept their ruling. Following her daughter's death, she began to uncover the first dark hints that Kate had somehow gotten mixed up with a major criminal organization. To this day, the police continue to pursue the random victim theory, but Lois Duncan is convinced that her daughter was executed by a hired assassin.
We're all set. No questions asked.
2.5 months before she was killed, Caitlin and her boyfriend took a trip to Southern California. It was at that time that Kate apparently became involved in a lucrative car insurance scam.
One of our daughters told me that March, a couple of months before, the boyfriend had staged an accident, a fake accident, in a car that Kate had rented for him with our credit card.
The scheme was allegedly orchestrated by an organization comprised of powerful members of Southern California's Vietnamese community. Everyone in the accident complained of soft tissue injuries to the neck and lower back, which were later treated by a doctor who was part of the organization. Ultimately, a paralegal working out of an Orange County, California law office handled the insurance claim. Kate and her boyfriend were given $1,500 as their share of the settlement, which they used to rent the apartment.
Everything went well.
It was evidently a major multi-million-dollar insurance scam, and Kate had found out about it. At the time, we didn't know how we could fit this in with her shooting, but all of a sudden there was another element there, something that suggested a possible motive. Because if Kate was breaking up with her boyfriend at that time, then maybe she was a danger to the people who had arranged this.
A few weeks after Kate's death, Lois was putting her daughter's affairs in order when she made a disturbing discovery. 3 phone calls had been made from Kate's apartment at virtually the same moment she died.
In fact, they were made just minutes after she was pronounced dead, when her boyfriend was with us at the hospital, and the apartment should have been unoccupied. The number turned out to belong to a Vietnamese paralegal in Orange County, a paralegal who lived in Santa Ana but worked in a law office in Garden Grove. And it was the same paralegal who set up the car wrecks.
Lois wanted me to look into Caitlin's relationship with the boyfriend. Lois felt that not everything was right there, that there had been some real problems and that the police had failed to take a look at it.
Mike Gallagher first met with Kate's former landlord.
I had the impression from neighbors that Caitlin was more afraid of her boyfriend's friends rather than her boyfriend. She would get disturbed when they only spoke Vietnamese around her. The friends, her boyfriend's friends tended to make fun of her and cause friction between her and her boyfriend. And she did not like his friends. I think the feeling from Mike Gallagher is mutual.
All right, Chris.
Unsolved mysteries.
Evidently, things were much more stormy than we had ever guessed. And it wasn't just a little lover's spat. There was something very major happening in Kate's life after she moved in with her boyfriend. And she told us she was very sorry that she had ever let him move in with her. It had been a big mistake. She wanted him to move out so her girlfriend could move in instead.
Mike Gallagher was able to obtain a copy of the note which Kate allegedly left for her boyfriend on the day of the shooting. He compared it with another sample of her handwriting.
It was obvious just by comparing the handwritings of the note with Caitlin's writing that she did not write that note. And that led me to believe that within hours of her shooting, her boyfriend was already lying to police.
The landlord also told Gallagher that on the night Caitlin died, 3 of her boyfriend's associates were in her apartment drinking. Kate's mother is convinced that one of them made the phone calls to Santa Ana.
I don't think that the Vietnamese connection is related to this case. Thus far, I have not received any information to indicate positively that the Vietnamese is involved in this homicide.
Was Caitlin Arquette executed because she had learned too much about the auto insurance scam? While Kate's family and Mike Gallagher were pursuing their investigation, the police were going in a completely different direction.
I'm trying to cooperate with you guys. I'm telling you the truth. I don't remember what
6 months after the murder, an informant led the Albuquerque police to a young man named Robert Garcia. Garcia was interrogated for 2 hours. Finally, he admitted that on July 16, 1989, he was out with 3 friends when one of them shot a woman in her car on a dare. Based on Garcia's statement, police arrested Dennis Martinez, Juvenal Escobedo, and Miguel Garcia, who is not related to Robert. According to Robert Garcia, it was Miguel who did the actual shooting. On the same day that Robert Garcia was interrogated, the police discovered that Escobedo had recently sold his car, a brown Chevrolet Camaro. Suddenly, an eyewitness report that they had initially disregarded took on a new significance. On the night of the murder, a truck driver said he saw a brown Camaro chasing a young woman in a car similar to Caitlin's in the area where she'd be gunned down an hour later.
On here or listening to. They sound incredible, but...
The police believe that the men in the Camaro had been out joyriding, and Kate became their random victim. It was later learned that Robert Garcia had in fact been in jail on the night Caitlin was shot. Ultimately, all charges against the 3 suspects were dropped for lack of sufficient evidence.
We certainly appreciate you coming in and talking to us again. All your cooperation. Got a few questions.
Finally, under pressure from Kate's family, the police questioned her boyfriend once again. This time, he admitted that he and a friend from Albuquerque had taken part in the auto insurance scam.
Our relationship was going great. We had our arguments, but...
Nevertheless, charges had never been pressed against him or any of his friends in connection with that scam. In addition, Caitlin's boyfriend is not considered a suspect in her murder.
Or any time in the past been involved
think it's important for the police to remember, and anybody who looks at this case to remember, that Caitlin's boyfriend's friends were involved with large-scale organized criminal activity in Los Angeles and multi-million-dollar insurance frauds. I don't think the police ever took that seriously.
Caitlin Arquette was killed in July of 1989. In this most bizarre case, there seemed to be two viable theories, leaving Kate's family to wonder who in fact was responsible and why did they target Kate.
Our family doesn't have any real idea who pulled the trigger on Kate. The one thing we feel very strong about is that she was not shot randomly, as just people out on a spree having fun shooting a pretty girl in a red car. We believe Kate was killed because she was going to talk, was going to expose illegal activities involving her boyfriend and his companions. It might have been that she was shot by the Vietnamese. It might have been that they hired someone else to shoot her. The one thing we're absolutely sure of in our own minds is that this was not a random shooting. Kate was assassinated.
Next, a family's poignant search for the young girl they raised as their own. On August 4th, 1990, 24-year-old Shannon Tim Payne was married in San Francisco, California, surrounded by all 8 of her brothers and sisters. But one very important person was not there to share the joy of that special day. 20 years earlier, when Shannon was still just a toddler, a 4-year-old girl named Terry Lynn Smith had come to live temporarily with the Tim Paynes in Orange, California. She stayed for 6 years, and in every way became a member of the family. It seems that some families, no matter how large, have more than enough love to go around. The Tim Paynes have not seen Terry Smith for more than a decade, and they feel that without her, their family will never be complete. Perhaps someone watching tonight can help bring Terry Lynn Smith back to the ones who still love her as their own. John and Jerry Tim Payne met in 1945. He was an intern specializing in obstetrics. She was a nurse. Between 1953 and 1965, John and Jerry had 9 children, 6 boys and 3 girls. The Tim Payne household was boisterous and bustling. The entire family loved animals and enjoyed an active outdoor life. In the summer of 1967, at the ranch where they boarded their 2 horses, the Tim Paynes came to know the manager of the ranch, Herb Smith.
I tell you what, why don't you go get this big guy some carrots? Terry, help Shannon with the carrots, will you please?
Was that your little girl, Herb?
Herb was divorced. His daughter Terry and son Mark lived with him in a small trailer. But Herb felt that the ranch was no place for a young girl. He believed that Terry needed a real family.
I think the first time I saw her, I thought she was rather forlorn. Here was this little girl on this large ranch, and while she loved horses, there were no children for her to play with. They were mostly cowboys. I was drawn to her because she was so sweet, and she was so happy to come and talk to me. And I just decided to talk to my husband about it and see if it would be feasible for us to take another one. We always had an extra bed in the house for somebody.
Herb Smith took Jerry Tim Payne up on her generous offer. In return, Herb insisted that the Tim Paynes allow him to take care of their horses free of charge. They promised Herb that they would bring Terry to visit him whenever he wanted. In August of 1967, Terry Smith moved into the already overflowing Tim Payne home.
I think in the beginning, she was just a little girl that was staying with us, but as the time grew longer and longer, she stayed with us as a sister. and she was included in everything in the family, so she therefore became part of the family.
All the Tim Payne children grew to love Terry. But for Shannon, the youngest, Terry's arrival was a dream come true.
There was a succession of boys in my family, and I was the youngest little girl, and I couldn't really hang out with them because they didn't want me to. I think Terry and I were especially close because we were so close in age, and things seemed to happen to us at the same time. We both learned to swim around the same time, and she basically taught me how to ride, and we got the chicken pox at the same time.
I think Terry loved being part of the family. She'd call them her brothers, she'd call them her sisters, and I think she enjoyed it very much.
Years passed. The temporary arrangement had in effect become permanent. None of the Tim Paynes could remember life without Terry. She shared in all the family's joys and in all their sorrows. On May 2nd, 1972, the family was scarred by tragedy. 46-year-old John Tim Payne succumbed to cancer. Jerry Tim Payne was forced to go back to work as a nurse. Because she had teenage children who could take care of the younger ones at night, Jerry worked the graveyard shift. That way she could be at home every afternoon when the children returned from school, and every morning to see them off.
Of course it was tough, but there was nobody else to do it, and I decided I had to do it. That was going to be my future, and I had 9 children or 10 children to raise, so I did.
Oh, it's fine. I'm just a little tired. Is everybody up?
Shannon and Terry are still sleeping. I think Brendan is too.
It's okay.
Money became a very big concern, and my mom was not around as much anymore because she was now the primary supporter in our family. So that also changed because she used to be there all the time.
Come on, girls. It's time to get up. Come on.
Even though the Tim Payne family managed to cope, having one more mouth to feed was now a problem. With a heavy heart, Jerry Tim Payne realized that she would have to send Terry back to her father.
Don't bother sitting down. Go brush your
And when I told the kids, they said no. They didn't want me to send her back. And I said, but it has to be, and I don't want to do it, but it's one of those things that happens, and she has her father, and she's going to go with him.
In the summer of 1974, Herb Smith came to take his daughter home. Terry had lived with the Tim Paynes for more than 6 years.
Come over on Saturday.
She was very sad. She didn't want to leave. We were her family. She'd grown attached to us.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
On the other hand, I think Terry was really excited to go home and live with her father again. She loved her father a great deal, and when she went to visit him on the weekends, it was always a real special thing, and she came home with many stories of what they did and where they went. And
if it were summertime, she would come and spend a week with us. And she loved coming back. She loved having the swimming pool there. She loved having the friends that she had made and the family around her. And unfortunately, these started to get less and less because they had moved to a different part of the state, and it was difficult to get her here.
In 1980, when Terry was 16, she surprised the Tim Paynes with one final visit.
Well, it was great seeing you, Terry. You should come by more often.
The reunion was bittersweet. Terry was no longer living with her father, and though she had brought her boyfriend with her to meet the Tim Paynes, she seemed uneasy and uncertain about her future.
Bye, Shannon.
I got a sense of feeling that she was not as happy as she could be. We talked more, and then her friend said that it was time to go, and they left. And that was the last time I saw her.
I didn't realize that would be the last time I saw Terry, because if I would have known that, I would have stopped her. There would be no way I would have let her go. It was very confusing, and we were trying to get her to stay, and we never asked where she was going because we were trying so hard to get her to stay, and we lost touch. I don't think that we ever forgot Terry. Everyone has a special place in their hearts for Terry. They have their own special relationship, and they would not forget that. And they want to make sure that she's safe and secure. They miss her a lot. Everybody talks about her all the time. You know, when we reminisce, and everything always includes Terry, you know?
Join me next time. Perhaps you may be able to help solve a mystery.
Getting there slowly. a bit more today in this thing. Slow going. But it's getting there slowly, piece by piece. It will get there. The bottom bit is near enough done. It's just trying to figure it out because it's oil painting style, and I'm not familiar with oil colours. So I'm just hoping for the best with the pieces, see if they fit, and then if they do, then that's good. That part's done. But yeah, I will be live later on, so we're gonna have some yeah, watch the puzzle pieces. Oh my god, this is just driving me nuts now. But I'm not giving up. This is one of the hardest ones I've ever had done so far, apart from the other one. I can't remember what one it was. But it's gotta be, yeah, stay away from the puzzle. Yeah, I'm not familiar with oil paintings or how they look like, you know what I mean? They look good. I must admit, it looks good. See, I'm concentrating on this bit of the canopy. And I did this little bit too. So this little bit, but there's one that's a little bit missing, so there's something in the middle there. That's probably in the pile. But other than that, they're different. I'm more familiar with acrylic paintings and watercolor, because that's what I've mainly been doing myself. So I might learn a little bit more, because I have got oil colours in a set, so I might see what that's all about. Might do a little research on it to get a little perspective of it, if you know what I mean. But other than that, and this is a Waddington puzzle. So as you can see, if I put it up a little bit closer, it's kind of blurry even in the pictures. So we'll get there. We'll get there. So yeah, I'm going to learn a lot more on watercolour, oil paintings or oil pastels or things like that, because I know I've got a little set with the watercolours and acrylics, so that I never really used. I would do the train, which is I started slowly doing here and here, just to make sure that they fit. But yeah, right, I'm gonna call it now, and I'll see if I can try and work it out. Try to anyway. But I'll see you guys later on. Lots of love to you all. Take care of yourselves. Bye everybody.